protection in Larchmont started in 1889 by a group of 25 citizens led by Charles Singer. Hose, reel, and rudimentary equipment were kept in a shed on Ocean Avenue, and they called themselves the Larchmont Manor Fire Company, of which Hose Company No. 1 was its prime unit. In the spring of 1891, a firehouse 28 feet wide by 50 feet deep, with a bell in the cupola, was erected on the corner of Circle and Maple Avenues. All the hand-drawn equipment was placed in the firehouse, and training programs and drills started. In 1891, the village was incorporated, and the property was deeded to the village with all of the equipment, and the department was reorganized under village law with an engine company, hook and ladder company, and a hose company. In October 1891, the Larchmont Fire Department was incorporated by the Board of Trustees. Hand-drawn equipment was adapted to be horse-drawn, and also sometimes would be back of the trolley. In 1896, the village obtained its first steam-driven pumping engine, which was assigned to the engine company. A year later, the hose company secured a hose wagon with 700 feet of hose to support the steamer. In 1923, the village constructed a new municipal building, which included space specifically developed for the fire companies. The companies drew for separate meeting rooms in the municipal building. Hook and Ladder Company drew room number 1, the hose company received the number 2 room, and the engine company was awarded the number 3 room.
I was chief of the Larchmont Fire Department in 1971-72. What we're going to do this evening is we're going to try to preserve a little of the history of the company rooms upstairs. The building within the next few weeks is getting ready to have bids open to do renovations to accommodate the Americans with Disabilities Act and also to make further room for the village offices. In doing that, the volunteer companies will be giving up their rooms, and before that happens, we would like to preserve a little of what's in those rooms. A little history as to the way those rooms formed. The companies moved up to the rooms in 1923, 75 years ago, when the building was completed. The companies came from 3 different locations. The engine company came from a firehouse on Chatsworth Avenue, which is just about across the street from where the post office stands today. The hose and the hook and ladder companies came from the main fire station, which was on the corner of Circle and Maple Avenues. There's an English Tudor house right there. And the 4th company, the Ambulance Protective Corps, they used to meet in individual members' homes, and they eventually got a room upstairs. The patrol company wasn't formed until 2 years after they arrived at the building. So what Ned and I are going to do, and I'll introduce Ned. Ned is, right now, he's the fire commissioner of the village of Larchmont, and he's a member of the engine company, and he's also very interested in preserving this history. We hope to preserve this because the rooms will never be like they are now, and there's quite a bit of nostalgia, as we'll soon see. And as the companies, I'll give you a brief history of the companies and how they took over those rooms and the renovations that were made over the course of years. So I think we should go upstairs now, Ed, and then take a look and explain what the rooms are all about. Welcome to the Ladder Room. The Hook and Ladder Company received this room in 1923 as a result of a drawing. When the 3 companies moved to this building onto this floor, they had a lottery, and the winner of the lottery got to select whatever room they wanted. The Hook and Ladder Company selected this room. The Hook and Ladder Company, as was formed at the beginning of the department in 1891, was basically formed to ladder structures, to ventilate buildings so that the interior firefighters could have better access to the building, to make it as smoke-free and as ventilation-free as possible. They also do the rescue, and these traditions and duties continue to this day. When the companies moved up here, the rooms were given to the companies for multi-purposes. They were given to them for off-hours entertainment and recreation, also to be used to have their monthly meetings and training sessions, and also, as I said, have their libations after their drills and meetings, and just a place for the men to get together and enjoy themselves and enjoy their conversations. This bar that I'm standing behind was erected in the late 50s. As a young boy, I used to receive $5 a meeting for cleaning up this room, and the bar used to be a little corner bar right over there on the opposite side, and I used to get $5 after each company drill, each company meeting, and department drill to clean up the room and wash the glasses and mop the floor and put all the chairs back and empty the ashtrays, of which is not a problem nowadays. But I remember my early years in the fire company. You opened the door here and you never saw such a blue haze in all your life of cigarette smoke, and that was pre-air conditioning days. But the rooms were given for these members to entertain, and they would have their annual parties and collations up here. As you've seen, also there are many mementos and memorandums that are collected by the various companies. Of course, you can see beer mugs from the various conventions and meetings. There's shoulder patches from various fire departments. There's the old license plates that's issued to us by the county to designate our equipment. One was the old Ladder 18, and then the new one is Tower Ladder 7, which it is. Many softball trophies. This company had a reputation of having a very good softball team throughout the department. And this is actually the bell off the old tower ladder that was retired 2 years ago, and it is now serving duty in the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania Fire Department, but that's the bell off of it. A couple speaking trumpets that were used by the officers to, they're mainly ceremonial trumpets, and this fire extinguisher lamp that was given to the company by ex-Chief John Giroldi. This picture, I think, is a picture that everybody loves. The fire pole in the firehouse is no longer used, mainly for safety. Larchmont, we have one here downstairs, but it's no longer used, but it shows a very dramatic picture of men responding to an alarm, and I think it is one of the nicer, plain, succinct pictures showing firemen responding to an alarm. The Slong picture was created by one of the company members who was a photographer. Actually, they were taken in groups of 4 or 5 men, and they were cut out, and as you can see, that fire truck appears to be 500 feet long. It's the old city service 1928 truck that they had, and this picture was taken the year that they received the new hook and ladder truck, which was 1950. The picture is very exaggerated. It was taken down in the Flynn Park parking lot, and this apparatus was retired shortly thereafter. But the photographer used a little license in showing these pictures, but he tended to place it pretty well together and even created shadows. The pictures weren't taken all the same day, and I think he did a pretty good job, and it's one of the most honored pictures that the Hook and Ladder Company has. This cartoon, basically with the Hook and Ladder logo and the 3 firemen carrying a ladder, was done by Herb Roth, who was a commercial artist and cartoonist who belonged to the Hook and Ladder Company in the early 30s and early 40s. He was a most prolific cartoonist and had several cartoons running in the major newspapers. the upper top of the picture, the mural, which was done in the late 50s by a local artist, Mimi Genuine. This whole collage, I'll try to explain it to you. The upper picture, of course, is the Circle Avenue firehouse with the bell tower alongside of it. The steamer was their 3-horse steamer, which came out of that firehouse, and that was the largest steamer that the fire department had. The boat represents the boat ride picnics in the summertime, and the men playing softball on the beach were part of that boat ride picnic. The lady doing the dance in the Indian costume is a person that many of you have seen for the last 9 years on television. She's Seinfeld's mother. Her name was Liz Sheridan, and she is the woman who played Seinfeld's mother for the last 9 years on TV. Of course, the gentlemen are standing around the bar having some talks. The card games were an occurrence. Every night after meetings were over, the card table, the top would come off and the men would play cards. The bottom shows the 1938 Aaron's Fox pumper. That was the one that they had, and the men responding to it. The gentleman in the picture, his name was Robert Greason. He was captain of the hose company when that was taken or drawn, and his 2 sons later became firemen. One became in the hose company. One became a professional fireman in the city of New Rochelle, and the other one advanced as high as 2nd deputy chief in the Larchmont Fire Department, but he had to drop out because of personal illness and business commitments. But his sons were very active. Of course, there were several large drills in which railroad ties were put up, and we had drills with the town of Mamaroneck Fire Department up in the old railroad station parking lot, and that's what this big flame area represents. The building down here represents the old New Rochelle Fire Department drill tower, and the hose company used to go down and practice with that. The picture was restored and retouched up and re-highlighted about 4 or 5 years ago when the hose company had the room done over, but it's one of the more priceless things in the Larchmont Fire Department. This bar that I'm standing behind hopefully will be used in the new quarters of the volunteer firemen up on the 3rd floor. Again, I told you, next door in the hook and ladder room, as a boy, I used to clean the room after meetings. I used to do the same in this room. I used to get $5 for cleaning after each meeting. But in those days, there was a little corner bar at that end of the room. However, when the room was redecorated, I guess 5 or 6 years ago, a beautiful job was done with this wood pan. It's not paneling; it's raw wood, and the shelving to hold all the trophies. Of course, we have speaking trumpets, which every company has. They were synonymous with fire company officers, so they could speak out their commands. We have the beer steins, the inevitable beer steins from various conventions and the like, and then also the autographed softballs, because as I spoke in the hook and ladder room, the companies have an intercompany rivalry once a year where they play softball, and there's a little bit of competition to stir interest. Again, as in the hook and ladder room, this is the license plate from the pumper, and this is the engine 35, and 60 is the designation for the Larchmont Fire Department. These were trophies of the tournaments between the various fire companies, and also up on top are trophies of the like. There you see an old leather hose company helmet with a torch on the top. The Larchmont Hose Company is noted throughout the whole eastern seaboard at their parades. They make a great hit at a night parade when all the firemen are marching with their torches on their heads. And it is a very spectacular sight with the torches on their heads and the red uniform tops and the white pants. And that's been a tradition of the hose company from their inception, and they've been known for that. Well, we're in the engine company room now, and this is Ned's and my company room. I've been coming up to this room since, I guess, for the last 60 years as a boy, as a young teenager, and then when I was 18, I joined this room and came up through the officer ranks. So there are a lot of memories in this room. My dad sat in this room. My son, who was a professional firefighter, a lieutenant downstairs, was a company officer in this room. His Explorer Scouts met in this room. The formation of the Larchmont Temple, before the building was built on Larchmont and Willow, the building committee used to meet in this room all the time. That's something that many people don't know. Also, the other rooms were always used as the village could use them. I mean, this room used to take the overflow when the visiting nurse was across the hall, and the children used to come in here. Or the village office staff people would come in and have their lunch. Or Carmen DeLuca would bring in the state auditors, and they would be in this room. In the hook and ladder room, the post office union met there. And so the rooms weren't just used by the fire companies. Basically, people who wanted to use the rooms, if they asked the companies and there was no conflicts, the rooms were put to good use by other organizations. Again, as in the other companies, they're very proud of their athletic abilities and also trophies that were won at various parades. Most of these for best appearing company and apparatus. As you can see, the mugs and the trophies, and actually all of the pewter trophies have individual members' names on them, and they would use these trophies for naturally whatever you put in them. The picture that you're looking at now was William Collins, who was the founder of Collins Brothers Movers. Actually, he passed the business on to his sons, Hugh, who was an ex-chief out of this company, and William, who was an ex-chief. But that is the original Mr. Bill Collins, who was a captain. Actually, they didn't call him captain in those days. He was foreman of the engine company. The bottom pictures of the men in uniform are, the engine company received regulation uniforms in 1946. This was their first picture in regulation uniform. These were the ex-chiefs and officers of the engine company, and of course down below, this was the whole company. This was taken Memorial Day 1946. So that picture is now 52 years old.
And this one down below?
The picture down below is the whole company, and in those days they were 50-man companies. I mean, again, as I said before, meeting nights, these rooms were so crowded you couldn't get a seat. You had to stand sometimes. And that was in the first regulation uniforms that Larchmont Fire Department had. Most of the uniforms were parade uniforms with a shirt and a blouse and a big bow tie, and these were the first regulation uniforms in Larchmont Fire Department. This picture was taken actually when I was chief, and you can see me in the middle of the picture standing with the white hat. It was this collage of pictures represents our centennial year in 1991. This was the menu. We shared a dinner with the Hook and Ladder Company. Of course, starting up in the upper left-hand corner, these were people taking family and friends in the engine company during that centennial year at various events and parties from fire department. The young fellow in the military uniform on the lower right that picture was taken while he was in Operation Desert Storm. He was one of the members of the department that went away to Africa during the Desert Storm. This cartoon represents, basically as it is, a fellow by the name of Sachs, Gene Sachs, and he was a commercial cartoonist, and he wrote a cartoon called Sad Sack that was in all the military papers and all the papers depicting soldiers' problems. And this was a picture that he gave and signed and gave to the engine company upon his going into the Navy during World War II. And there are a couple other cartoons on the wall showing his comic strips. This is a plaque given to ex-Chief Hugh Collins. He was the son of Captain William Collins, who you saw previously. He was the first member of the Larchmont Fire Department ever to achieve 50 years of active service. The black and white picture is Bubs Collins or Hugh Collins at his dinner the day he received that plaque.
It's okay.
This plaque is dedicated to ex-Chief Hugh Collins. It's called Bub's Corner. This is where he always sat during the company meetings. And as a young member, when you joined the company, you didn't have a right to speak to anybody. It was like Congress. You didn't speak to anybody until about 2 or 3 years, but you respected the older members. But because Bub sat here, this corner was given to him in his name after he passed away. The bell that you see actually is a ceremonial bell with the captain's shield on it that we use during communion breakfasts and meetings, and they're tolled for the honored members who passed away. This plaque is to ex-Chief Duncan Scotty McPhail, who was the second member of the department to achieve over 50 years of active service. Unfortunately, right after this was presented to Scotty, he took seriously ill and he was not able to take part in any dinner or honoring of him because of his illness. Go. This is a picture of the engine company room back in the very early 30s. As you can see, the walls were plain plaster, and they're not knotty pine as they are now. And the walls were plain with fancy plaster panels, but there wasn't the adornment and the pictures on the walls in those days. But this showed the men. This was taken after a fire inspection, dinner, or prior to one, and you can see the uniforms: white pants, blue shirt, white bow tie, and a helmet. And the old chief's uniform wore choker collars and about 12 buttons on the front. This picture is a picture taken in 1941 at the 50th anniversary of the Larchmont Fire Department. That's the fire department standing on review in front of the building, and the big white screen on the building is a movie screen, and moving pictures were shown from the library across. As you can see, this was taken in October. The weather was cold, people had coats on, but this was in October of 1941. And as you can see, the flags and the regalia, this was the celebration of the department's 50th anniversary. The corner cabinet represents, again, many trophies and the like. Starting at the top left on the shelf you'll see a 76. 76 is an engine company in New York City, of which we used to go down into their quarters and train. And that's a face shield from that company. The top is an old engine company helmet which dates back to the early 1900s. And of course the face shield alongside of it is one of the early department face shields. The belt on the second shelf is actually the uniform belt that they wore with the white pants. That's mainly for parades. On the middle shelf, of course, was a little engine that one of the members had made. But interesting enough, the lantern in the back of the shelf with the face shield on it was actually one of the lanterns on the old patrol truck. And then the bottom shelf has badges from various country fire departments, Bermuda, and where our members had visited on vacation, they received badges from those fire departments. This wall represents the white chief's helmet. It's the helmet that was worn by one of the first deputy chiefs back in the 30s. And upon his passing, when his family was cleaning out the attic, it was found there. The two plaques with all the nameplates on them are very synonymous with the engine company, and they are plaques of pride for the engine company. The engine company yearly gives an Engineman of the Year award one of the most proudest things is one year I received it, and then the next year my son received it, and he and I are right alongside of each other, and that's one of the prouder things of my life. The picture up above is the wet down presentation of the present Pierce pumper that we have downstairs that was dedicated in 1992, and that was the company in 1992 when we received the present pumper. This plaque depicts all the ex-captains and chiefs of the engine company. The red ones are chiefs who were former captains, and the blue ones are former captains, the date of service and their names. The engine company has been known as the company of chiefs. The engine company has had more chiefs for the Larchmont Fire Department, and which has always given me the feeling that not that we were better than the other companies, but just that the dedication of the men and their perseverance led them to become chiefs of the fire department. And this is something I'm also very proud of. The plates were given out during the 75th anniversary, and they were commemorative plates given to all the people who came to the dinner. And the pumper in it is the 1947 American LaFrance pumper that we had up until 1972 when we got the American LaFrance pumper. Again, above it is an old engine company hat, and you can helmet, and you can see the age of it, how it has worn out like all of us. As shown in Ned's panning around the room, you noticed a beautiful pine wall covering, and that was installed in 1938 over the original plaster walls. And that's not paneling, so to speak, that you would buy today in your local Home Depot. That is actually tongue and groove, knotty pine paneling, board. And as a younger member, I remember many a time having to scrub and put a shine on it. Unfortunately, with the passing of this room and its future use, hopefully maybe we can save a little of this paneling to install in an area of our new quarters, just as a reminder and a memory of what was here. We've been up here for 75 years, and a lot of memories are going to be going away with our moving upstairs, and that's why Ned and I are trying to preserve these for you. I'm seated now at the captain and meeting table upstairs on the third floor of the patrol company room. Unfortunately, in preparation for the construction and the work to be done, the patrol company has removed almost all their memorabilia and pictures off the wall. But however, I can give you a little idea of what the outcome and what happened. The patrol company was formed about 2 years after the other companies moved into the building. And so they were located up here into the third floor. The patrol company's duties were basically they took over the duties, a lot of duties of the Ambulance Protective Corps. They would do traffic duties at fires. They carried all the horses and the lighting and provided extra lighting at the fire. And also they would cover up the contents of a building while the firefighters were putting the fire out. Their duties have since changed, and they formed themselves in later years into a rescue company. However, in today's operations, their members are working along with the other companies basically as a one-company fire department, and their men are also trained in basic firefighting and the like. This portion of the room was the original portion of the room, and in days prior to air conditioning, summer meetings used to be very, very hot up here. My father-in-law was a member of this company, and he was an officer in this company. The picture up there was done by the same gentleman that did the picture of the old steamer downstairs. It depicts a patrolman and actually was modeled after a gentleman by the name of Joe Garrity, who was a captain, a later captain of the patrol company, standing with the lantern that you saw, the same thing down the engine room, and that in the background was the old Seagrave 1928 patrol truck. And basically that was the duties of the patrolman at a working fire to keep cars and traffic away from the fire scene so that the firefighters could work in safety. Again, unfortunately, most of the materials are being put away by the various companies to protect them during the course of construction. This room will be the actual room where all three combined companies will meet. I think Ned will show on the future drawings the plans of how this room is going to look after the construction. This eave or nave is the portion that sticks out over the front of the building, and the smaller windows, and architecturally it's very beautiful. This is going to be part of the, actually where we're sitting now, will be part of the future fire council room, which will be used as a fire council room and meeting room. That portion of it, I don't remember, Ned, is going to be used for what, storage, or I can't remember, because that whole wall will be a corridor. The facing wall on the front of the building will be a corridor to gain access to this end of the building and to where the elevator is going to be installed. And behind us will be the locker rooms for the police, and also there will be toilet facilities and shower facilities for the police and for the firemen to use. Again, I'm at the patrol company's bar. Of course, all firefighters have libation after drills and meetings, and of course for the social functions that the companies hold. This room, the members just kept encroaching and encroaching. About 12 feet in front of me, or where the pool table is now, was actually where the end of the pool table is actually where the end of the room ended. And being there was vacant space in the attic, naturally, as the company got larger, the patrol company originally only had 30 members. And later on in the 50s, they were given the charter to increase their membership to 50 members. So they needed the room for these members, so they moved the bar back, and they moved back into actually what was attic storage space. And all this work was done by themselves. The paneling and the floor tiles and the erection of the bar. And again, unfortunately, most of the mementos, in fact all of them, have been packed away for storage. And some of them will come back, and provisions will be made in the future construction to show these mementos and souvenirs and items of memory to all of us.
Change is constant in the fire service. In Larchmont, change in the fire service has responded to evolution in the methods and technologies for fire protection and the changing needs of our village. In 1889, the citizens who formed the Larchmont Manor Fire Company responded to the needs of a newly developing community. In 1891, when Larchmont incorporated as a village, the community invested in new equipment, new structures, and developed the Larchmont Fire Department. In 1923, the village saw the need for a municipal building and included the fire department and the fire companies in the plans for what we know today as Village Hall. In recent decades, the fire department and the village have continued to respond to changing needs within the village and evolving protection technologies and methods, providing improved emergency medical services, advanced approaches to initial attack of fires, and coordinated approaches to training and operations. It is in this spirit that the fire department and the village approach the upgrading of Village Hall for the next century of service. The entire village will benefit from improved space to support village services. For the fire department, new company rooms on the third floor of Village Hall will provide a larger space for departmental training, governance, and social functions, and we are committed to the goal that the larger combined company room will continue in the tradition of the company rooms featured in this film. While the rooms will be new and different, they will continue to reflect the tradition and history of the fire department as embodied in the pictures, plaques, memorabilia, and historical decorations featured in this film.